Shifting Perspectives with me, Daniel Posney. And today we're going to talk about something that we don't normally like talking about. And those topics are grief, depression, and death. And I actually like talking about those things. So I've gathered together over the years some sayings and some ideas about those topics that make me more comfortable with those topics. And so I want to share those with you. And this topic comes about because I just lost my mom. And she has been battling Lewy body disease, which is the same thing that Robin Williams had. And it's a sort of a Parkinson's type disease. It's more of a dementia type thing where it's incurable and it just keeps on degenerating more and more and more. And you start losing that person more and more. So my mom just passed this last week. And my father had passed when I was 12 years old. And this really, it really kind of came all around full circle for me. And the reason why I want to add in here about depression, because I kind of dipped my toe into it a little bit. And I was looking forward to just feeling this onset of depression and doing whatever I needed to do, just completely feel that depressed state, because I feel like there's sometimes that I've gone into depression, it's because I've been pushing away the emotion. I've been pushing away the grief, what I wasn't ready to experience. And, when my dad died, we all were given, ample time to just not go to school. I think I was in 7th grade at the time. And they basically said, you can take as much time as you need. And after about a week, I felt a lot better. And then I said, no one's stopping me, so I'm going to take more time. So I took more time and I just lounged around. I think I watched TV, I went outside, rode my bicycle, just kind of took advantage of the situation a little bit. And I'm so glad I did that, because it gave me space instead of just diving right back into school and everything. It looks like everything's okay. It really wasn't. And it would have been much different if maybe my dad was abusive or a terrible person, but he was a great guy, great father, great husband. So it was a big hit on all of us. So, but there was still more grieving to be had. And after that, I started to distract myself with different things, and I could see how in my life I've also distracted myself. And so when my mom passed recently, it was another opportunity to just sink into that again and just say, okay, is there anything left that needs to be cried about and experienced and felt and witnessed? And so I just let that come in. I just kind of sat there just waiting for it to come in, and just feeling the emotions and feeling my mom is gone. I'm never physically going to see her. And I let that hit me. And then I started to think about all the wonderful memories that I've had of my mother and all the things that we've done together, all the things that we've talked about. And it just really hit me, and I let it just come into me. And I felt a little bit of depression where I was just completely not motivated to do anything. And it felt so good not to do anything, not to distract myself. And even if depression needed to take me over, I was just kind of, okay, this is what's happening right now. And, eventually the depression feeling didn't stay for very long. And I just moved into just sadness. And it's just a normal feeling, emotion to have. And it just felt really good to just sink into that and finally, or more, just let it wash over me. And I feel like, those moments when we lose someone, and, bear in mind that I'm talking about grieving from loss, which is death, or otherwise could be loss of a relationship or a job or whatever. But I just allow that just to wash over me. Okay, how does that feel? And just instead of going this way or that way, just let it come into me. So I have some things that I've written down over the years, and I want to share them with you. And just maybe some will affect you, and maybe some won't. But I got a bunch that I just want to share with you. So Depression is the feeling of being in a hole and powerlessness. Go into the darkness of the hole, into the powerlessness. In darkness, we're able to acknowledge the light. This is why each new awakening is usually preceded by a period of a plunge into a tunnel of darkness. If we think that we already know what it is like beyond this tunnel, we deceive ourselves. Dare the darkness and find the light. So it's that grief and even the depression, the sadness of loss. That's what makes life so precious to me. I think about that. Oh, wow, life. I've had that person in my life and now they're gone. It kind of reminds me the preciousness of life. So I know for myself, I need that reminder every once in a while. So people die, and it reminds me about that. People die that are amazing musicians that were a very critical part of my life and my childhood. And, you know, when they die, when Tom Petty dies or anyone else that was part of my growing up, you know, I really grieve that. Wow, they were there for me, you know, and it's really healthy for me to acknowledge that. Depression or anxiety is an opportunity to intensify your investigation of the self and the investigation of the self who suffers and your undying connection to source, not the enemy. So there's this movie, Hostiles, and Captain Blocker tells Chief Yellowhawk as he's dying, he tells him, a part of me dies with you. And I really thought about that. I thought about, you know, how that happens. You know, where he says, you know, a part of us dies when we are separated from loved ones through breakup or death. It's a trauma to our system. And I think about, like, when my mother died, when my father died, when my friend died, you know, we sort of meld into each other a little bit. You know, the people that we have energy with, whether it's we like that part of the person or we don't like that part of the person, we take some of that into ourselves. And so when they die, part of that is affected by that. So I really feel what Captain Blocker was talking to Yellowhawk about, even though they were enemies, you know, till almost the very end. And then when he died, he says, oh, man, I've taken you into my body and soul. And when you die, even though you've been my enemy, part of me dies. I just, man, that really hit me. Imagine life with no physical death. How precious would life be? How inspired would you be to wake up every morning? You've already lived longer than someone that you knew and probably weren't prepared. Prepare yourself for death by living fully. So everyone knows, you know, who knows me, that my favorite movie is Cloud Atlas. And there's a character in the name Sanmi 451, and she's a hybrid, and she's, you know, hybrid in the future. She becomes this prophet, and this guy is asking her about death, and she says, "I believe death is only a door. One closes and another opens. If I were to imagine heaven, I would imagine a door opening, and he would be waiting for me there." Talking about her beloved. So there's a chief Tecumseh, and he was sort of a medicine man leader, and one of these indigenous nations. Forgive me if I don't remember the actual nation, but he says, trouble no one about their religion, respect others in their view, and demand that they respect yours. Love your life, protect your life, perfect your life. Beautify all things in your life. Seek to make your life long and its purpose in the service of your people. Prepare a noble death song for the day when you go over the great divide. Let me say that differently. I said it with a weird flow. Prepare a noble death song for the day when you go over the great divide. All right. Give death the same awareness as you do when you lay down to go to sleep. Let go in the same way. Just because you lay down to sleep doesn't mean you cease to exist. Death does not come to us. We are death also. Here's something I want to share from Abraham Hicks. Sometimes someone will be sick, and a daughter or someone who loves a sick person will say, Abraham, I'm wanting to help this person. And we say, just hold the image of them in a place of utter well-being and trust that through the path of least resistance, either they will recover and well-being will be will be restored here, or they will withdraw and well-being will be restored there. But in either case, whether they stay or whether they have what you call death experience, the well-being is always restored. Whether it is someone who has just been bipping along in physical experience, who has been meditating, who knows the sweetness of connection on a day-to-day basis, who says, this life experience has been so wonderful, and I think I will now turn my attention to another aspect of my life experience, closes their eyes as they put themselves in the bed, make the transition, and they are discovered as having made their transition in the night. Or whether they have some violent experience where at the gun of an enemy or the gun of someone violent or a car crash, they make their transition. As they make their transition, ultimately, it is still the same experience. Wow. Man, that's deep. All right. And also people that know me know that I have this real connection with this letter from Ram Dass. So I want to share this with you. Forgive me if you've heard this before, but I'm so touched by this. So for those who haven't heard this letter to Rachel from Ram Dass, here we go. I replaced her name Rachel with your beloved. Your beloved has finished her work on earth and leaves the stage in a manner that leaves those of us left behind with a cry of agony in our hearts, as the fragile thread of our faith is dealt with so violently. Is anyone strong enough to stay conscious through such teaching as you are receiving? Probably very few. And even they would only have a whisper of equanimity and peace amidst the screaming trumpets of their rage, grief, horror, and desolation. I can't assuage your pain with any words, nor should I. For your pain is your beloved's legacy to you. Not that she or I would inflict such pain by choice, but there it is. And it must burn its purifying way to completion. For something in you dies when you bear the unbearable. And it is only in that dark night of the soul that you are prepared to see as God sees and to love as God loves. Now is the time to let your grief find expression, no false strength. Now is the time to sit quietly and speak to your beloved and thank her for being with you these few years and encourage her to go on with whatever her work is, knowing that you will grow in compassion and wisdom from this experience. In my heart, I know that you and she will meet again and again and recognize the many ways in which you have known each other. And when you meet, you will know in a flash what now is not given to you to know, why this had to be the way it was. Our rational minds can never understand what has happened, but our hearts, if we can keep them open to God, will find their own intuitive way. Your beloved came through her to do her work, came through you to do her work, which includes her manner of death. Now her soul is free, and the love that you can share with her is invulnerable to the winds of changing time and space. And that deep love include me. All right, now I'd like to move on to grief and the, I guess, the metaphysical approach to that. And, when I was practicing Qigong and yoga, you start to look at different metaphysical purposes for that, and especially Qigong, where the different parts of your body, especially your organs, have different emotional states or connections to them. And I looked at grief. And so here's the things that are related to Qigong or Chinese medicine. So grief is the middle finger. And when you think about that, it's this, you're committed to somebody, and then the loss of that, you lost that commitment. So it's like that's the ring finger, that's the commitment, that's that real connection with someone. And then you lose that someone that you're really connected with, and that's where the grief comes in. It's also with the lungs, and the lungs are about breathing. So the emotion that's in the lungs is grief. It's also the large intestines, and it's the nose. So I think about the lungs, the large intestines, the nose. It's all about being able to breathe in this grief, this acceptance of that there is death within life. And when I choose to breathe into that, I feel more expansive, and I feel that I can accept and embrace that. Whereas what we normally do is we normally shut down and we don't breathe, and we kind of close down our lungs. It's also the nose, again, the breathing. And it's also the color white, and which is this perfection or divinity. Also metal for some reason I don't really know, but maybe it's connected with the metal is found in the earth, and it's, you dig it up from the earth. Maybe that's, kind of where our body goes back into the earth. And then autumn. So it's the autumn or the fall, the last part of someone's life, maybe. And then the questions to ask: what and who are you grieving, and what is your ritual? So when I found out that my mom had passed, Valerie and I created a little ritual. So we went into our room. We have an altar, and there's different pictures and statues and crystals and all things that have been kind of gathered over the years. And I got one of my favorite pictures of me and my mom, and I printed it out and I posted it right there at the top of the altar there. And we just set some little things there. We lit a candle, and we spoke to my mom, and we said, thank you for being in our life, and thank you for expressing your love for me. At the end of your life, all of her truest emotions and feelings finally came to the surface, and that was such a blessing. And Valerie got to be on the phone with her when she was still coherent or cognizant. And she said, I want to talk to Valerie, which was, wow, you want to talk to someone, that I'm in relationship with, just as a direct conversation. It's pretty powerful. And she told her, she said, I don't know you, but I love you. I mean, wow, that was, for all this to happen at the end, it was just something that we really focused on, that, and not about the disease and about the suffering and all that, and great compassion for that. But that's not really what I want to choose to focus on. So we said prayers to her and thank you and gratitude, and had tears. And, one of the things that Valerie did for me is just held me in her arms, and I got to cry and get all those things that I could have used more of when my dad died. And so it all kind of came all back together. And I would say that the biggest thing that I learned from that is to allow that in, and not keep pushing things down, pushing things away. No, I'm okay. Yeah, how are you? Yeah, I'm okay. Even though my mom just died and my dad died when I was a kid, that's huge. And we make these things that they somehow don't affect us, but to be real with it and say, yeah, this really does affect me. And I remember I went to the store, and, the cashier, usually I go to the cash, I'm in a great mood. Life is awesome. And, that's just how my life is that way, honestly. And then when the cashier asked me how I was doing that day, I went, I guess I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. Not great. And she's like, oh, wow, that's good. I mean, it was nice she realized that not everybody's doing great all the time. And I didn't need to explain to her why. I just said, today is just okay. And that's where I'm at right now. And it kind of gave me permission just to be in that for right now. It's not going to be permanent. And just where my emotions are right now. So here's some things to help you move through grief. Don't distract yourself. Release the emotions. Address the negative thoughts and beliefs. So the way that I would release the emotions, if you have some tears to shed, if you can get there, shed the tears and just let them come out. Don't try and stop them. What helps me sometimes is I'll watch an emotional movie, and that helps the tears come out. And I would say that if there's something in your life that is causing tears, whether that's a loss of a loved one or a loss of a friendship or a relationship or anything, your dog, your cat, think of it as an opportunity to go back into grief. Maybe grief wasn't experienced long enough in some other time of your childhood. So this is an opportunity for grief to come back as your friend and spend some time with your friend. Like, I think about when people have experienced grief and they're in the military and they've lost people, maybe that is an opportunity to go back into that grief, not just for the people that were lost right then, but grief that was there in their childhood. And it's a very interesting thing to look at that, to say, okay, grief is coming up. Why is it so heavy in my life right now? Well, when is the last time that you had grief, or when is the first time you can remember? If you go back to that time, did you really move through it in a really healthy way? And usually the answer is no. Usually the answer is, well, I wasn't allowed to, or we just pushed through or something. So discover who you are right now. Change up your life. Maybe this is an opportunity to, we all have these things in our life that causes a shift in life. It's an accident or an illness or a death or a divorce or something. And death or something that, or some kind of loss is sometimes an opportunity for us to come back to ourselves, recenter ourselves, recalibrate ourselves and say, okay, how do I want to move forward right now? Because, the really good thing about grief and loss is that you have full permission to do what you need to do. You have full permission to just stop and say, this relationship or that job or that way of living or something, I get to reevaluate any of those things in my life. And you're kind of, you're seen as having the full permission to do whatever you need to do, hopefully. So what was the person's positive effect? Bring their energy in. So, there's this loss that my mom's not going to be here in the physical. But what also is there that I can really focus on now is that there's no egoic in my side or her side. There's no egoic barriers between us anymore. There's no judgment between us anymore. There's only awareness. There's only loving awareness between us. And that is the coolest feeling, that now we can both appreciate unconditional love between us. Now there's some part there's some on my side that I could hold on to judgment with that. I'm just choosing not to do it. And that's where Ho'oponopono can come in, or cord releasing exercise can come in to release the judgment that we may be holding out to someone that's not even in the physical anymore. So it doesn't even make any sense. Ask what is right with me. So that's a good exercise to focus on the positive here. Seek the support from others. Don't push it aside like, you've got nothing going on. It's not really affecting you. That's BS. It does affect you. It affects everyone. And especially the people that say it doesn't affect me are the ones that it affects the most. Okay. What is the best thing that you would enjoy happening? Not what you think could happen. Relax your body, meditate, take a bath, go out into nature, journal, create, make an altar, and get closure. Everyone deals with grief differently. People cry, laugh, busy themselves with work, throw up, or even feel numb. Some recover quickly while others take their time. Grief is a natural healing process, and there's no, quote, right way to do it. For some people, grief can become too painful. It can grow into something totally different, like depression or anxiety. Other times, grief might last far too long and take over a person's life for years on end. This is called complicated grief. Normal grief, quote, normal grief, varies greatly between cultures, people, and situations. Grief is a natural process and does not always require treatment. About 10% of people develop complicated grief after a loss. So the part of the problem in our modern society is that we're moving so fast, and we're really focused on our electronic devices and get things really fast. And so there really isn't this space to allow ourselves to properly experience grief. But what I really want to impress upon you and other people is that you deserve that. You deserve some kind of a going out in nature, jumping into cold water, being out there climbing a mountaintop and just screaming your lungs out, or expressing yourself, or creating an altar, doing all these things, stack some rocks, do anything that causes you to say, this is what I'm doing right now. Doesn't have to be for a whole day, 3 days, or a week. Could be just, this is what I'm doing for the next 2 hours, is then focus on how I feel about this. So get your butt and your soul into nature. So here's some questions that you can ask yourself to kind of bring up the real presence with grief. So right now I feel blank. I feel the saddest when blank. The thing I miss the most about the person who I lost is blank. Since the loss, things have been different because blank. My family usually feels blank. If I could ask the person I lost one thing, I would ask blank. My worst memory is blank. Something I liked about the person who I lost was blank. One thing I learned from the person who I lost is blank. So it really causes you to really get into that. And those things that really affected you negatively about the person is something that's part of the inner work, part of looking at how you might judge another person and how that's an opportunity to come back and integrate that in yourself. When the black image, depression, anxiety, or grief, appears on my screen of awareness, my screen disappears. You wouldn't know that you were in depression, anxiety, or grief if the knowing of it, the awareness, was not present. Did you get that? It's kind of subtle there. When the black image appears on my screen disappears. Uh-oh, I just lost my, here we go. Sorry, I just lost my screen here. Oh, jeez. My screen just went blank. All right. If the knowing of it was not present, this knowing or awareness is not buried under layers and layers of feeling. It continues to shine upon even the deepest depression. Know yourself as that knowing and not the depression. Like a TV screen, the glass shines to make the image visible or the feeling known. Instead of focusing on the image, pull back and focus on the glass, the knowing, the shining light of awareness, which is always present. I know that's a really deep concept, what I just spoke about there, but what it's saying is you wouldn't be able to feel any emotion, sadness, depression, grief, anger, fear, happiness, joy, if there wasn't the awareness. So there's an awareness of the feeling, and then you go into the feeling. But if their awareness wasn't there, you would be comatose. You would be completely blank to it. But that they're in that thing, there's a clue to what your true nature is. You are the awareness. It's the mind that has the anxiety, grief, depression, and all those feelings. It's the body that feels that produces the chemicals that has that feeling. But the truth of what we are is the awareness of that. That kind of, I don't know, that really helps me kind of get into the reality of what I am and also embrace the feeling of depression and sadness and anger, whatever is coming up, that the awareness, I'm here in the awareness, just really aware of this feeling. And it allows me to not push it away and just really stay in awareness about it. All right. It is not ours to know the time of our death, but the time of our living. And when you are ready, that time is now. So I hope that really helps in some way to help you heal and integrate from loss, whether that's the loss of a loved one through loss of a relationship or through death. But know that death is all a part of it, and it allows us to see life as a more precious thing. And if there wasn't death, I don't know what we would do. But to make too much light of it, like it's not a big thing, that's really part of what it's there for, to make life precious and to remind us how much that person affected us in our life. And even if it's a negative effect of someone, wow, that person really made me feel crappy. That person really made me feel terrible about myself. Wow, now what do I do? So whether it's a positive or negative effect, it really causes us to go inside and really get in touch with that. So I really appreciate that. And for now, I'd like to say goodbye and give prayers and gratitude and love to my mother and my father and all the people that have passed out of this physical plane and now that are free and liberated from this sometimes difficult dimension and beautiful dimension. Thank you so much. I love you, bless you, and have a wonderful day.